And we're back, baby! You thought this series was over, but I'm actually just a little more lazy. Instead of recapping the games that I've been playing every single month, I'm gonna start doing them bi-monthly. It just makes more sense for my schedule. The bi-monthly, that's once every 2 months, by the way, not twice a month. Thanks, guy who invented the term bi-monthly. You really saved me a lot of time on that explanation. Also, yes, I'm sick. I was gonna play it cool and not even mention it, but I can already tell I sound horrible, so have fun listening to my tinny-ass voice for 20 minutes. I played some AAA games the last couple of months, although I did miss a couple that everyone's raving about. I played a few indies, mainly side-scrollers, and I tried out a couple of demos too, also mainly side-scrollers. Let's talk about those first. Remember that this is the rating system I'm going to be using, but I'm only going to be doing that for the full-length games I played.
I am a predator, Eddie. Lions do not eat salad.
The Last Case of Benedict Fox is a cerebral, visually dense, and intriguing mystery-themed Metroidvania, although elements of its demo also felt a touch amateurish. It has a bit of an odd, floaty double jump that can only work in certain areas. Its combat can feel a little bit rigid, although with more abilities and practice I could see this getting better as the game goes on. And aside from Venom over here,
Anguish fills this residence, Benedict.
I thought the voice acting was I definitely still had a good time with the demo and see a lot of potential in it. I think if its core mystery is interesting enough and you can get a solid set of abilities throughout, it'll be a Metroidvania well worth your time, and at the very least you won't get sick of looking at its layered, ethereal spaces. But I also saw some of the potential limitations. The game comes out later this month. I might try and do a review on it when it does, but at the very least you'll probably see me talk about the full game in the next video of this series.
Tracer. I'm already Tracer.
Bionic Bay's demo actually sort of blew me away. I was very impressed by how quickly it ramped up in complexity while still not feeling overwhelming and also feeling like just the beginning. It has this great swapping mechanic where you can select an object and then switch places with it at the press of a button. It's just one of those simple but brilliant puzzle mechanics that I love. As cool as all the perspective-based or high-concept puzzle games are, the more straightforward ones are the ones that I enjoy the most. Complementing that great premise are these giant levels that the game does a great job showcasing by making you a small part of it, a very strong use of colors, and sound design that pierces through the silence. I said in my anticipated games video a few months ago that this game would live and die by its level design, and so far that design has been great, but I wasn't expecting the rest of it to be as well-rounded as what I experienced in the demo. Definitely keep your eye on this one.
Knock, knock, Britta.
I'm not gonna say who's there because someone on the floor is knocking.
Well, that's lame. You have to say who's there.
Floor!
What?
That's who's there!
Yeah, but it's for you!
Elypse's demo showed some of its deficiencies right away, mostly that its visuals aren't quite as exciting as some of the games that it bears a close resemblance to, and I think there's something a bit off with the friction and gravity. It just feels like they don't behave like they should. But once you get into the air and start chaining a few dashes and attacks together, it starts to show its merit. The game is pretty fluid where it needs to be, and most importantly, I can see how it's going to scale up as we go on. The trailer also makes me a bit more confident that it'll find its footing in the art department, even if it's not quite as polished as the comparisons that come to mind, and I think this is a game that's going to get a lot better as it goes on, so a bit of promise is all I needed to see. And this last one actually isn't a demo, but I basically played it like one, so I might as well put it here. Nioh 2.
Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?
Listen, I know a lot of people want me to like this game, but I just don't. I've now tried to get into the Nioh games 3 times. This time I was co-op with my brother as well, which usually makes things more fun anyways, and it still didn't click. I think the enemy placement and behavior is just so over-the-top middle finger to the player that it's not fun. I have no problem playing hard games, I enjoy them actually, but Nioh 2 for me doesn't feel like it had fun in mind, and in pursuit of that fun it makes itself difficult. It feels like it had being difficult in mind and then in the process stops me from having fun. I also know that it gets a lot of praise for its combat, and I'm not trying to make a blanket statement about it because I've only really played a few hours at this point, but I felt like I had a lot of combat options, but fighting also felt like a very static your turn, my turn affair. Maybe it just had weird iframe timing, but I found relying on outspacing to avoid attacks was more efficient, and I don't know, that's not fun to me. I'm sorry to all the Nioh fans that I know watch my videos. You can now go back to playing pin finger with a samurai sword. That's just how I assume people like you spend their free time. My roommates are trying to get me into anime because I guess the video game obsession, comic collection, YouTube channel, and engineering degree didn't make me enough of a nerd already. And they started me with what I think is a pretty popular recommendation for beginners, Death Note. I really enjoyed the show's ability to make massive changes from episode to episode. It's only about 40 episodes long, 20 minutes each, and the amount of world building and storylines they cram in there is crazy. I feel like they could have turned 3 to 4 episode arcs from this show into a full season, and most people wouldn't think they were milking it. That dedication to constantly keeping the show moving does catch up with it in the last dozen or so episodes though, something that most people agree on. It has a solid ending, but the handful of episodes leading up to that ending are a bit of a letdown. But I still think the show is pretty great overall. I'd much rather watch shorter to the point animes than ones that have hundreds or thousands of episodes that are well known for their fillers, so if anyone's got more of those, let me know about them in the comments. Gorillaz released Cracker Island a couple of months ago, and I thought it was awesome, but then I saw some of their fan base wasn't over the moon about it. A common complaint that I was seeing was that it was too safe. It wasn't trying to do anything experimental, and it was just easygoing alt pop. Honestly, I don't care. Good music is good music, and if you want to listen to good music, listen to the album. I get that Gorillaz should be experimental, that's basically the whole concept, and I'll agree that this album wasn't quite as daring or weird as some of their others, but I still think it's just as solid. I'm hoping they drop a Song Machine 2 sometime soon as well, because that was one of my favorite albums of the last few years. Succession Season 4 started, and surprise, it's amazing. One of my roommates actually doesn't like Succession, and so I've just banned him from having opinions anymore. I just don't trust that guy. We got the surprise news that this is going to be the last season of the show, which I think adds a lot of extra weight to some of the moves that are being made early on. When offers are made or opportunities arise, I'm already wondering if that's where the characters are going to end up, whereas before it might have felt like I was waiting for that position to collapse from under them. We're still at a point here where it feels like motivations are slowly being unraveled for the season, and so we'll see how it all pans out. And while I'm sad that the show is ending, it is very admirable for them to go out when it's at the peak of its popularity. I also watched Dave last month, which is a dramatized semi-autobiography about Lil Dicky's life. I know a lot of people are probably wondering what the hell could have prompted my decision to check this out, and honestly, couldn't tell you. I think the show has some really great moments, like there are some really well done dramatic scenes. I do enjoy the writing style it's going for, the actors are pretty charismatic, but it's also a little inconsistent. I think Season 2 is a tighter package than Season 1 overall. Season 3 is airing right now, haven't seen that one yet. But probably my biggest problem with it all is an issue that I also have with Lil Dicky, which is that he wants to assure everyone that he's more of a genius than he really is. One of the reasons I like Season 2 better is that it actually tackles that problem, this massive ego he has, but you can still feel this underlying self-image problem of the real-life guy in the way that certain scenes play out. Like, he names himself after a dick joke, his music early on in the show is just bad 8th grade humor, and then he gets annoyed that fans in the show think of him as a spoof rapper or a label calls him the next Lonely Island. Like, first of all, the Lonely Island are great, okay? Put some respect on their name. And secondly, I don't care how talented you are, all you've shown people is spoofy music, so why would they not think of you like that? He made the same point in real life in his music video for Freaky Friday, and then multiple times in this show, he does this woe is me, I'm so talented but people think I'm a joke thing, and it's clear that he's actually kind of annoyed by this. But my guy, you did this to yourself. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I agree that he's actually a pretty talented dude, more than his surface level dick jokes go, but you can't blame people for reacting like this when that's the whole brand you're selling, you know? I don't know, it might seem like a weird complaint, and he does paint himself like a narcissist in the show, so there's gotta be some self-awareness there, but it just rubs me the wrong way, I guess. I spent entirely too much time talking about Dave in a video that's supposed to be about games, huh?
Zhang Liang?
No.
Zhang Bao?
No.
Zhang Jiao?
No.
Zhang Rang?
No.
Zhang Liao? No.
I'd call Wolong Fallen Dynasty a really fun 7 out of 10. It's got issues. The level design is just kind of there. I think Team Ninja just hasn't figured out how to make satisfying levels to explore. Visually, it looks outdated. The story is so boring and the voice acting so unconvincing that I just stopped paying attention entirely. And I think having so much loot in the game actively drove me away from learning how to improve my arsenal. It is disgusting how bloated your inventory gets. At one point, I was trying to sell everything, and I felt like I went back in time and went on a 72-hour cookie clicker marathon. That all said, the combat feels really good, and there are a lot of bosses that I really liked, and when your game is almost entirely predicated on fighting things, that's enough to let me forgive you for your other issues. The biggest letdown gameplay-wise is honestly the enemy variety. They introduced 90% of the enemies that you'll be fighting in the first 2 chapters, and then you have 5 chapters of fighting the exact same nerds. Like, how many times am I gonna have to stab the villain from the Jungle Book? Can we get somebody else in here? But the sheer amount of tools that you had at your disposal really let me shake things up. I talked about how much I love the spirit bar in this other video, and the focus on parrying let me really get into enemies and control the pace, which is something that I was complaining about with Nioh. This game does have a lot of shortcomings, but it's still something that I think especially Souls fans should check out. Overall, I'd say get to it eventually. Maybe it's not a high priority thing, but if you have Game Pass, it's free on there for you, so bump it up to the top of your wish list. Just give it a try.
For God's sake, Harry, what is with this language? You're a fucking wizard! I don't give a fuck, you fat, hairy bastard! I'm not a fucking wizard!
Now, Hogwarts Legacy that's a boring 7 out of 10. Some of you might be a bit confused that I have that take, considering I had a pretty positive video about parts of its open world a while back, but let me let you in on the creative process here for a second. I was actually planning on making 2 Hogwarts Legacy videos, one that covered the positive side of its open world with a hint of the negative, and one that covered the negative side of its open world with a hint of the positive. I'd actually written a good chunk of the video which criticized a lot of the game's very unimaginative design choices and incredibly bland side activities, and then the game kind of just bored me out of making the video. Like, I straight up lost interest in talking about it because it didn't feel like it was worth my time, but now the only video about it on my channel is one that makes it seem like I was pretty chipper, so let me set the record straight. I do stand by what I praised in that initial video. I do think a huge draw of this game early on was the fact that it imbued a lot of the world with whimsy and charm and silly little details that are basically handed to you on a platter with a Harry Potter game. I did mention in that video that the world was a little boring activity-wise. The puzzles were the characters were and the story was But there's a lot of made ground with stuff like the effects, the dedication to Hogwarts staples like the Room of Requirement and the appearing staircases, the hidden corridors, and the vertical level design. Those things drew me in early and they made the game more fun, so yeah, I do still think that studios that make open world games can learn from this. At a base level, they do still have to shake things up because it's getting really boring, but with the right choices, even some superficial ones, you can still present something by the books in a way that engages players. That was the main point of that video. That all said, you can still kind of out-boring yourself, and Hogwarts Legacy totally did that. The gameplay got better and better until it became tedious. I can't even describe how stupidly easy and repetitive most puzzles are, and I think I remember like 2 characters' names. And one of them is Professor Garlic, because she's bad as fuck. It's not a terrible game. I had stretches where I was having a good time with it. I definitely don't hate it. It just got a content problem, which is a shame because a lot of its systems are pretty solid. Most of the world has probably already played it at this point, but if you haven't, honestly, I'd say this one's up in the air. If you are truly sick of standard open world games that a lot of people contribute to the Ubisoft formula, avoid this game like the plague. You will not enjoy it. But if you still have some patience for it, then it's still a better product than like the new Far Cry.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left.
Yes, I have. Look! Just a flesh wound.
I made a whole video on Dead Space, so I'll just recap that here. Great game, very well made. It just didn't click with me like I wanted it to. Every time I played it, I was having a good time, but I could only play it for short stretches, and I never had the overwhelming urge to go back to it again the next day. It was almost like working out, honestly. It was like, all right, listen, you're gonna be glad you did this when you start, but the real struggle is getting to your couch and pressing play. It might sound a little bit weird, but I try to break this down more in the dedicated review I gave, so you can go check that out if you want. I still definitely recommend it though, especially if you're a fan of this genre, so put it at the top of your wish list.
I gotta get this on film. I am straight trouncing spaz and go fish.
Dude, what are you doing? Don't record this.
Oh, hey, come on.
Wait, did you hear that?
Oh my god, what the hell is that?
Inscryption is a game that I appreciate more every single time. It has such a strong, deep, but still easy to understand loop, and it's probably like nothing you've ever played before. There's so many layers to this game and ways to play it and build your deck that I haven't even tried. I look at how some people talk about their runs and I'm like, damn, I didn't even know you could do that. It's the only card game I've ever gotten really into. It feels perfectly tuned. I don't know what genre it's a part of, but it's at the pinnacle of it, I'll tell you that much. Atlanta is a very weird show. I wasn't actually aware of how weird it was going to be when I first started watching it, but I really did like the consistently off-kilter, unexpected episode structure. It has a lot of organically funny moments, characters that don't feel like archetypes, and some horror infusion, even though people still insist on calling it a sitcom. In fact, I've heard it leans even more into that as it goes on. I'm not done it yet, I'm a couple of episodes into the 3rd season, but it's definitely a show that keeps me on my toes. Also, watching season 1 episode 5's credits and realizing that Donald Glover is the dude singing the fake pop song from the episode in a show produced by, starring, and occasionally being directed and written by Donald Glover really makes you think, hey, this dude might be kind of talented or something, huh? Ooh, hot take alert, John Wick 4 is good, but it's not as good as you all say it is. Minor spoilers coming up. I'll be discussing 2 small moments that aren't directly story related, and I also talk about a character and his general abilities, which are both revealed very early in the movie. Skip here to move past me talking about John Wick 4. Yes, this movie is top of the line, peak eye candy. It is beautifully shot, the cinematography is incredible, the action sequences are so intricate and complex, but man, this movie is also so stupid. It has a lot of physical humor, and I think that's on purpose, but to me it doesn't fit with what we've gotten before in the series, and it clashes very suddenly with the rest of the movie. And look, I'm a goofy, silly goose myself, look at the silly picture, but when it happened a bunch, especially near the end and the action got even more over the top, it felt like tonal whiplash. I also wish this series hadn't gone quite as ridiculous as it had. I like the more realistic John Wick 1 1 stuff that was still over the top, but it had a toe in reality, whereas now we're just flying off into space. I wouldn't mind that generally, like I like both grounded and batshit insane action movies, but it doesn't feel like it fits this series and its character and its world to me anymore. John Wick has more superpowers than most superheroes, even though he started off as just a really skilled regular guy. At one point, this man jumps off multiple floors and belly flops onto a car in the most disgusting way, and he just gets up and walks it off. Even if it's a joke, it still takes away from his Herculean efforts when he's sometimes a cartoon. It doesn't stop there though. There's a character in this movie who's a blind assassin, and he's basically Daredevil. Except not really. He doesn't essentially have super echolocation, he's just blind with kinda good hearing, I guess? He needs to touch things with his cane to see where he's going and use tools to know where people are exactly, so his hearing isn't even that good, because apparently without those things he could easily get snuck up on. But not only does he only use these tools once, even though it seems like it's pretty clear that he would need them in combat, but considering what his tools and canes tell us about his weaknesses, this man should be dead like 85 times over in this film. It's ridiculous. Like, Daredevil can hear people putting their guns up, he can hear their heartbeat stop right before they shoot, he can hear their fingers curling towards the trigger before they reach it, but this guy can't do that. Instead, they just kind of give everyone a melon brain when fighting him, including John, just to keep him alive so he can be cool, but watching that feels so forced. There's a moment where John could so easily, like, I cannot even stress to you how easily he could have turned around and killed this man. This guy doesn't know where John is, John has a gun, he knows where the guy is, just shoot him from any distance that's not directly in his face. But no, he waits until this dude stands right beside him and then grapples him and then tries to shoot him. Literally the only thing that would have given this guy an opportunity to fight back. I will suspend the hell out of my disbelief if a movie gives me a reason to. Honestly, just explain it similarly to Daredevil's echolocation and I'll buy it. Screw it. It's not very realistic, but it's fine. Let's do this thing. But don't establish rules and then say, haha, just kidding. Like, now I'm confused. Also, I don't know if they explained this in the last 2 movies, maybe I forgot, but why does the suit not have some kind of blowback when it's shot? Like, honestly, again, if you tell me, hey, perfect bulletproof suit that's still light and mobile, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because I'm here to have a good time. I will get on board with this plot device as long as you commit to it making a little bit of sense. So I'm okay with it looking like a completely normal suit and bullets not penetrating it whatsoever. But when bullets hit it, shouldn't that like push the fabric backwards? It is a bullet after all. It goes kind of fast. I mean, the air pushes this thing back and forth. Don't tell me it's allowed to stay perfectly stiff when a projectile is shot at it. John should be getting concussed all movie because these bullets are just slamming his suit backwards and hitting him in the head. And I'm really not trying to complain to be the actually guy. I just think this makes fights look so goofy because people are shooting guns and it feels like the bullets dissipate midair, or like they're water guns. It took all the tension out of it for me. And to cap it all off, I feel like there were some really awkward fight choreo moments that nobody but me and my roommates seem to be talking about, and I feel like I'm going crazy, but I definitely saw these, where extras would like pull back their fists to punch John, but then they realized that they may have gone a bit early, or Keanu was taking extra time on the last dude, so they stumble a little and uncock their fist, and then John starts turning towards them, and then they recock their fist so he can interrupt them midway. Like, I saw variations of that multiple times, and I should not be the kind of person who notices that. I'm very easily distracted. I'm like a dog during an action movie. I don't even notice bad CGI most of the time, so if I'm catching all these glimpses of people awkwardly joining the fight or standing still until somebody hits them, then I feel like it's a pretty glaring issue. I know the fanfare for this is crazy. I know a lot of you are gonna get annoyed at me and say, dude, it's a shut your brain off and enjoy yourself kind of movie. Why are you trying to get so into the weeds of things? But I went into this expecting a shut your brain off movie, and I still felt like it was way too ridiculous to take anything serious at all, which is a problem when your movie is also asking me to take certain things seriously. Anyways, this is I guess a John Wick 4 video now. I've been keeping an eye on Have a Nice Death since its first trailer. I just love the beautifully crafted art and animations in the cutscenes and gameplay, but I wanted to wait until it got further into early access before trying it out. By the time I bought it, I realized that its 1.0 release was just a few months away, so I decided to wait it out a little bit longer, but I was itching to finally get to this thing. And it really hasn't disappointed so far. You might see this one again next video for my final thoughts, because I haven't beaten it yet, but I've put a good chunk of hours into it, and it's just good old-fashioned, really well-made roguelite fun. I have a few nitpicks, like how certain perks are tied to certain biomes, because that means certain builds are gonna pick the same biome every time. I wish they went a touch harder with the procedural generation as well, and maybe it's a bit stingy on the healing, but none of that greatly harms the experience. It is beautiful to look at, there's a lot of interesting weapons and spells, fantastic animations. I've only fought a couple of main bosses, but they've been great. The game's kind of brutal sometimes, it's very committed to its themes and presentation. What's not to love? If you're a roguelite fan, then you really gotta check this one out. I don't know if they're planning on adding extra content updates, but the more this one grows, the closer it gets to landing up there with the big boys, so put it at the top of your wish list.
Mr. Peanut Butter and BoJack Horseman in the same room. What is this, a crossover episode?
Speaking of the roguelite big boys, I came back to Dead Cells after they released the Return to Castlevania DLC. I haven't gone back to it in a while, but there's been a lot of additions since I first played it, so I bought all the DLC and jumped straight in. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of all the new content. I mean, I haven't even beat a run yet, so I'm still experiencing earlier sections of the castle, but man, I might be having more fun with this now than when I first played it, which is saying a lot. I think they added some amazing weapons and increased the drop rates, so it always feels like I have a fun arsenal. There's so many crossovers, big and small, one of my favorites being the Hollow Knight bench that gives you the nail weapon, and of course, the Castlevania stuff is awesome. It's so lovingly made, they stuffed a lot of content in here, and at this point, Motion Twin just needs to collab with Konami and make an actual new Castlevania game. Not like an homage like Infernax, because I feel like that game already gave us exactly that, but something that takes the IP and modernizes it while still staying true to form. At this point, I don't think anyone's gonna deny the fact that Dead Cells is one of the few games you could consider as the pinnacle of the roguelite genre.
Somebody touch my spaghetti!
And finally, Pizza Tower. This game is legitimately unbelievable. I'm probably gonna make a whole standalone Pizza Tower video, but man, this is just a game that knows how to be really fun. It looks like if you asked a 4-year-old to make a video game, but the 4-year-old was a genius, but he also still had his stubby little baby hands. Everything is drawn crudely, you get these Courage the Cowardly Dog screams from our main man, Peppino. But that's all part of the charm. The soundtrack absolutely slaps. This is such an easy game to pick up and play. There's so many fun gimmicks that they cram into levels, and each one has so much replay value. I kinda suck at Pizza Tower if I'm being honest, but I could see myself going back and trying to do better on a level because I can see the vision, you know? I can see what I'm supposed to do, now I just gotta do it. It is an unexpected gem of a game, and in this stacked ass year, I would not be surprised if it ended up in my top 10. I think a bunch of stuff has to not get delayed for it to be bumped out. Being part of the platforming genre gives it some really stiff competition, so it's not quite the pinnacle of its genre, but it's a short, cheap, replayable, and unbelievably fun game, so it at least deserves a spot at the top of your wish list. That's everything I played in February and March. Let me know what you played, what you thought of these games, what I should play next. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like. If you're new here, subscribe. Join the Discord, it's in the description, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.